Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Any discussion or changes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Reports from communications from the city officers, Mr. Deerhog.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee member. I'll have a brief report for you tonight. First off, I'll tell you how we've done this last month. We, for the second month in a row, set a record for the number of building inspections we did. We almost hit 2,000 inspections for the month of March. We fell just short of that at 1,954. We did see our permits tick back up again after taking a little dip in February. So our residential permits increased from 135 in February back up to 272 in March. We had 49 new homes permitted in March, and our commercial permits also took a little bit of a tick up as well. And lastly, I would just want to highlight a few new businesses that have opened up in March. We had 11 new businesses open up in the city, and some of those include some good places to eat, such as Big Apple Donuts, Bohemian Bowl, Chipotle, and Maverick Biscuit. And certainly if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those that you may have.
Any questions?
I have none.
We don't have any. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next thing on the agenda is an impact fee overview from Mr. Noonkester.
Yes, ma'am. I'll do the driving from this point, and I'm actually going to bring Matt up on the screen. Matt, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Let me see if I can. Okay, Matt, you're now the host, so now you can pull your presentation up on your screen, and we'll follow along with you from there.
Okay.
Isn't technology?
Let me share my screen. All right, can you just confirm if you see a slide, title slide?
Yes. We're good.
Fantastic. Okay, well, first and foremost, my name is Matt Noonkester. I own a firm called City Explained Incorporated, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all this evening about impact fees. Mr. Duncan had asked me to do sort of a brief overview of kind of the who, what, why, where, and when of impact fees, and then I can answer any questions you want. Frankly, and Mr. Duncan will vouch for this, I can speak for 2 minutes or 2 days on the topic. I'm going to try to stay more towards the lower end of that spectrum, but please, if you have any questions, feel free to go into as much depth as you want to during the meeting. I just want to make sure everybody walks away kind of having their questions answered. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. So without further ado, we do have hold on a second. Let me make sure this still works. Okay. I do have a method to the madness for this evening. So we have an agenda. I was just going to do a brief overview of impact fees in South Carolina and then talk a little bit about some of the solution and tools that are available to you if you decide to go down that road. Also, because you are following state law, there are specific requirements and documents that have to be created. So I was going to overview those for you today and then talk about some things to consider as you move forward and then take as many questions as you want. I'm happy to stay with you as long as you'll have me. So starting with an introduction, first, just kind of what are impact fees? They are financial payments. So they are made from a developer and an applicant, typically to the local government, and they're used to fund the proportionate share of offsite capital impacts that they have on the systems that serve the residents and future residents of Mauldin. They do not count as on-site improvements. So for example, if you require a turn lane or something on-site to manage that development, that wouldn't be an impact fee. That would be something tied to their development approval. So again, we're looking at off-site improvements when we look into the future for an impact fee study. We do have both the blessing and the curse of having the South Carolina Development Impact Fee Act in place for South Carolina. So we do need to follow it. It's a prescriptive set of rules and regulations and requirements that we would follow to create the program, and then you would use it to administer. So impact fees and concept are there to pass construction costs onto new development rather than existing development. So again, you generally draw a line in the sand and you say, from this point forward, we are enumerating what it would cost to serve future development, and we're going to collect a fee in order to help offset the costs of that development. The legality for collecting the fees, you have to have authority to do it. Again, you do as a city, and or if you're a county within South Carolina, you have standing under the act. There needs to be what's called the rational nexus test, which means that the fees that are being charged have a direct relationship both to how much is being collected, of what type is being collected, and where the impact fees are being collected and the projects being programmed with the money spent. And they must not be discriminatory. So when we come up on different land uses, for example, there is a growing list within the state law of things that are exempt specifically by state law. But beyond that, we do need to make sure that the different land uses that have a proportionate share on the system in the future are all charged the impact fee. And there is growing interest right now for both cities and towns, as well as counties throughout South Carolina for this system. They'd work best in places that are having rapid growth and development. Then there's a significant amount of land left for more development. They tend to work really well there. And then obviously, if there's a general resistance to increase property taxes or other fees, it becomes very attractive to tack one on to new development that is coming in rather than the existing taxpayers. And then just to know, if you do decide to move forward, you'd be in good company when you're looking statewide. This is a map of different localities who have been either administering a program new or updating an old program before the act. And you can see it's from the coast to the mountains. This is actually a list developed for a South Carolina APA conference in 2021. So there might be a few that have slid in since then. Some of these are studies that we have completed. So I can tell you, like where you see Dorchester County and Berkeley County, the reason those are hollowed out circles is because they have rescinded their impact fees in favor of sales tax. And Camden and Kershaw are actually two current projects that our firm is working on right now for impact fees. And then just to sort of graphically display how impact fees are applied. Here you see a neighborhood that's under construction, and everywhere you see a rooftop right now, because there's not an impact fee program in place, none of those homes as they're built would be charged the impact fee. It's not retroactive. It's once the ordinance is approved and put in place, only then does that development be subject to the impact fee. So again, in this graphic, all the homes that are in place but have not or that have been built before the act was approved would not be subject to an impact fee. All of the other lots, so that you see that are vacant, if they come in for a building permit after the time that the impact fee system is put in place, they would be subject to the impact fee moving forward. And you can see that even in some neighborhoods, depending on when and where you approve this, some neighborhoods that are in process of developing out, some homes may have paid an impact fee and some homes may not have paid an impact fee. And it all comes down to the date that you enact your ordinance. Now, in terms of just some of the solutions and tools that you have available and things to consider as you contemplate an impact fee program for your jurisdiction, impact fees can be used for, and this is right out of the state law, design and engineering related to a project, the acquisition of right-of-way or land to support that project, construction of the project, if you have to relocate utilities for any reason, and the financing of the project. So if you were to bond a larger project, you could use impact fees to help pay a proportion or all of the project fee coming out of it. Impact fees may not be used for the maintenance of existing facilities, the administrative costs that come with administering the impact fee itself, and any operating costs that come with the improvement that you program and build. So it's really a very clear test that anything that's in place today, or anything that is put in place even because of impact fees, the maintenance and operation of that facility, once it's brought online for new capacity, can no longer be eligible for impact fees. That has to be paid for out of another pot of city money. All revenues that are collected as impact fees are put in an interest-bearing account. The finance department would have separate accounts for each impact fee category that you have. And the money that's collected must be spent within 3 years of the scheduled date of construction in your capital improvements plan or your projects list. And this is just set up because there was concern that money would be collected, future development would be creating their impacts, but the city might be holding on to that money. And so this 3-year requirement sort of forces the jurisdiction to be spending the money freely in order to provide that capacity for which the impact fees were collected. You do have to do an annual monitoring report. Most jurisdictions tie this with their budget process in terms of reporting how many fees were collected, what the money was spent on, et cetera. You would have to do a comprehensive review and update of the system every 5 years, usually on the same cycle as your comprehensive plan that you have. And if you decide to charge a new project fee, meaning a new topic, or to change the requirements of the fee, meaning ask for a higher fee, you need to update the study to substantiate that before you increase the fee. Now, as I mentioned, we are driven by the South Carolina Development Impact Fee Act, and there are 4 main requirements or deliverables that get created out of that. The first one is a justification report for the impact fee. The second is a list of capital projects eligible for spending of impact fee money. The third is a study on affordable housing and what this might do to the price of housing by implementing an impact fee. And then the fourth component is the ordinance itself, which props up the program. And then in terms of a process, how this goes, traditionally speaking, you would do a feasibility study. Again, collecting the data, figuring out the appropriateness of different categories and different funding streams. City Council would need to enact a resolution and pass a resolution directing the Planning Commission to complete the study. And with that resolution, it would put a time frame for how soon they needed to complete the study, which is really that point of commitment that you would want to move forward with all 4 components that are required under the Act. When you go through those components, you would first create the justification study, which looks at really kind of what you have in place today and what you'll need in the future. From that study comes out the list of projects that can be funded, and then you would complete the affordability housing analysis as well. Based off of that as a foundation, then you can, if you decide to move forward from that point, you would then develop and draft the ordinance, and then you would go out just like your traditional process with a new ordinance and have a public comment period. public hearings. Usually you would do a work session for the elected and appointed officials. And if you so chose, some communities will actually go out and do a public workshop. That's your decision to do. And then you would ultimately adopt the program and start its implementation. Now, just a little bit of a deep dive into the documents so you know what needs to be created and when. Again, the impact fee justification report first is everything. It's the book report, so to speak, of what's required to support an impact fee and its findings. It looks at existing conditions that are in place today and anticipates those needs in the future and gives a cost assignment to those. And then this is the study that actually recommends what's called the maximum allowable impact fee. That's the most amount of money you could collect by dwelling unit, by square foot, or by non-residential square feet based on the data that was collected. In terms of the categories, there are several out there that you may consider. One that we call municipal facilities and services is kind of a catch-all for certain categories of police protection, maybe public works. Some people have solid waste duties that they fulfill with that category. Different government buildings that are related to growth and needing more capacity for growth. Then you have parks and recreation as a popular impact fee category, as well as fire protection. Transportation has been an impact fee in the past. Some communities feel strongly about doing it, others do not. We can talk about that during the discussion. If you are a provider of schools, usually counties, they have a school impact fee that a lot of folks are implementing. And there are a couple of other categories that are eligible under the Act, but I'm just showing you the most popular ones being seen in the state. We do have to have a study area. So for you all, it would be applicable within your city limits. You can set up provisions that if you do annexation, how does the impact fee get collected there with the annexation? And then you can also, depending on how we set up the fees, have service zones. So especially when we work in counties that are larger, we'll say they have fire response areas or they have park service zones and those kind of things. And that goes back to that rational nexus test of making sure that where the money is collected, the money is spent to benefit future development. Now, we have two methodologies that we can follow when we go through this. And the way I describe them at this early of a junction of an impact fee discussion is the consumption approach is basically like there's a line in front of you and you arrive at the line and you get in the back and everybody in the line has the same experience. So you take generally what something is valued at for your system and what you provide now, you divide it by how many people there are and you get a cost per person, which creates a cost per household, or a cost per employee that creates a cost per 1,000 square feet for non-residential square footage. But it's basically saying, let's keep the same service standard. And as more people get in the back of the line, they'll have the same share of burden that you have if you're closer to the front of the line. The alternative to that is called an improvements-driven approach, where you set goals and standards and expectations that you're going to allow a certain amount of park acreage per 1,000 people. You're going to keep a certain type of level of service for your transportation system. And it's more like a stair step. So you have an improvement in place, it serves, it breaks, you have to create a new one. It almost like vertically raises the capacity and then it goes across and it breaks and then you raise it up again. So it's more like a stair step than a straight line as you go through. And the advantage of these approaches are different by impact fee category. And then also this is a document that will talk about the concept of a discount rate. And I told you that you create a maximum allowable impact fee that could be collected. Then you have the option of applying a discount rate to that maximum allowable. And that's either for political reasons or for market reasons when you're comparing yourself to nearby communities that are charging fees. Or we always like to put a little bit of a discount in there just so that it gives us some buffer with the data that was collected or some of the assumptions that were made. So that if we ever went to court, we would have a little bit of room if something were found to be amiss or awry within the study. Now, the second element is the capital improvements plan. It doesn't need to be a full document. It can just be a project list. Some communities just have an Excel sheet that they use as their wish list, and then they talk about it during the budgeting process. But there has to be some type of formal identification of those projects that are going to be eligible for impact fee funding. Those projects would have a cost and an estimated year to begin. And again, we have to spend it within 3 years of that estimated year to begin. In terms of what's eligible for impact fees, again, just to remind ourselves from my opening, it's the projects or portions thereof that increase capacity. Capacity is the main test that would support future development. If part of the project is replacing or rehabilitating something that's there today, maybe you have a playground and you're replacing the playground because it's getting older, it's a safety issue. That component that was there before the impact fees were enacted would not be available for the impact fee funding. So it's a little bit tricky, and we just have to do good documentation. The third item is the affordable housing study that gets done, and we basically look at what it costs to rent or own a home in your jurisdiction. And then we look at all the costs that go with that, and we add the impact fee on top of it. And then we try to determine if the impact fee is costing you or pushing you into what's called a cost burden condition, which means that people who live there are spending more than 30% of their income on housing. And how does the impact fee raise or lower that? And is it significant or not using that test? So again, it's a study that has to be done. Honestly, nothing has to be done with it once it's completed, but it has to be something that allows the community eyes wide open to know what the impacts are from the program they might be considering. And then the last item is the ordinance itself. So this is actually what administers the fee. It's the legality and the framework on how you collect the fee, how much it is, where it applies. All the rules are within the ordinance that's created. And again, it'll reference the documentation in the other three topics I've gone over. If you do have different service zones, they have to be spelled out within your ordinance. How you determine the fees, how you give credits and reimbursements, how you give an applicant the opportunity to appeal the decision or the amount of the fee, and how refunds are handled within the program are all set out within the ordinance itself. And then also within the ordinance are the impact fees. It is a schedule. And you see here just where you see the green, red, and blue, that just shows you how we can do sensitivity testing with the different discount rates. And we get to a total. And there are, like I said, all different reasons why you choose different discount rates, whether it's confidence in the data, the market and the market absorption or market expectations, as well as the politics of an impact fee system. So all that stuff goes into play. The nice part about this, though, is if you ever want to change your fee, change your discount rate, you can do that through a normal text amendment. You would not need to update the impact fee study to do that. So some things to consider as you go through an impact fee and kind of rationalize whether it's appropriate for you, your community. In a lot of ways, timing is everything, so you got to follow the economy. Are you hot? Are you cold? What type of uses are coming in? How much is coming in? Are you going to generate enough impact fee to be able to spend money on projects? What is the pushback to those? What is the support for those? So you look at all of that kind of stuff as you go through this, and some of that might influence your discount rates or some other decisions you make within the ordinance itself. And then how the budgeting works as well is very important as you think about impact fees. The other part, or at least the part that we really value when we do these types of studies, is our partnering arrangement. So we try to be open and honest about what impact fees are and what they aren't. We try to talk about the data that's exchanging in both directions. And then in terms of the fingerprints or who would need to be involved in a study, if you decide to move forward, staff would work very closely with a consultant in order to prepare all the required materials. There would need to be policymaker briefings, both with Planning Commission as well as council, especially when you're propping up your first impact fee. It's really good to have some extra meetings to make sure everybody is on board and knows where the compass is pointing with what we're trying to achieve. And then again, those general information meetings, if you choose to do that, some places will have a developers workshop just so they can understand and provide comments. Some will have a community meeting. All that is up to you and what you want to do. So then if we bring it back here, again, I didn't want to speak too long about impact fees for this evening. I know it's kind of the first conversation about it. So I would just leave it here and answer any questions you may have, or we can, again, talk about any topic related to impact fees. I'm happy to host the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Noonkester. Does anyone have any questions?
I'll start with from the back. You just said bring it back to Mauldin. Did we have this before?
No. I just meant because I was talking so global at a state level. I just wanted to bring it back to specific concerns you may have.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Keep digging, but I might be good.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any more questions. I appreciate all the information you've given us.
Okay.
Certainly something to think about.
Sure. You're welcome. And I think this was already in your packet, but if you have any follow-up questions, you can send them through staff and I'd be happy to answer.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
And I think you have to give me back control.
Yeah, I'll get that for you here.
Commandeer the meeting on us.
I promise I won't do that.
Thank you so much, Matt, and we'll touch base offline.
Okay, sounds good. You confirm you have control of the meeting back?
Looks like I do. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you all very much again.